Hey, kia ora koutou whānau. Welcome back to another episode of Big Hairy News with Big Hairy Chewy and me and our guest fan fave for the evening, Moana Maniapoto. Thank you so much for joining us, Moana. We're very excited about tonight.
Kia ora. I didn't actually realise that's what your name stood for, your acronym.
Big Hairy News, that's us.
Yeah. Gee whiz, I learn something every day. I love it.
The truth is, though, it didn't start off to be like hairy people. I had this idea about, people talk about big, hairy, audacious goals. You know that? The big, hairy, audacious goal. Okay. I thought about the big, hairy, audacious news story of the day. So it kind of started there, but people have sort of evolved it into, oh, look at the beards. But whatever.
For some reason. Who knows why?
Who knows?
Thanks for joining us, man. This is a pleasure. And a big thanks to Bomber for connecting us as well, because without him, none of this would be happening. All credit goes to him. Cool. Thanks for coming on board. We just said to our punters in the last kind of week or so, who are your faves from this year? And sometimes there were people who had been on with us. Sometimes there were people who we have used as commentary in our show. So we take other people's interviews and commentary and we put it in our show, and then we watch it together and we kind of comment on it and take it apart. And your name came up amongst those people that we've had so far. And yeah, very, very excited to have you on. So thank you.
Thank you for your warm welcome. Kia ora. Tēnā kōrua.
I want to start with a bit of a weird one, because I was going to ask you how you sort of transitioned from singer through to what you do now, especially with Te Ao. But because I'm a moron and I was a teenager when some of your music came out, I'm only just learning now what an impact you would have had and the lyrics that you used, and how it kind of feels like 1990 you were sort of educating the country, but just in a very different way. Like I put on Black Pearl today, right, because I wanted to listen to it again, and for the first time I heard the words and went, holy shit. And for those who haven't heard it, Black Pearl, precious little girl, let me put you up where you belong, you've been in the background far too long. And it just, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but it's kind of like that feels like the theme to what you're still doing with your interviewing and your show today. Am I right? Am I seeing that right? That you've sort of been doing this in different versions and different ways your whole career?
That's very kind of you. And I must admit that I didn't actually write Black Pearl, but Murray Kamek, who was a game changer in the music industry and recorded lots of bands, including my earlier incarnation, Moana and the Morehunters and She Heart, and I don't know, groups like Double D and Half a T or something like that. He suggested that we do that to sort of gain a public profile, and then and because it was very much kind of the sort of thing that I was into. I was, I suppose, being described as an activist or a radical back then. And so we put that out. I remember being nearly 9 months pregnant at the time, so wombling around on the video set. And then that went up to number 2. It was caught out by a song. It didn't make number 1 because there was a song called "Do the Bart Thing."
Do the Bart Thing. Yeah, I remember that.
Do the Bart Thing. Anyway, that went to number 1. Anyway, but it was a cunning plan of Murray's. We got a gold record and all that sort of stuff, and we got all this profile. Everyone's like, "Oh, aren't they cool? They're like, Māori, soul, R&B." And then he goes, right, come on now, let's get in there. Let's write something that's very radical in terms of what New Zealand music industry might tip it over a little bit. So we wrote A, E, I, O, U. There was a bunch of us from my band to promote the language. It's kind of ironic. I had a party here on the weekend and I was hauling out these old songs and I was thinking, oh my God, they're like just as relevant now. Isn't it
Yeah.
ridiculous?
Yeah.
So A, E, or U, after that came Treaty, where I had my haka performers actually create a haka using the actual articles of the treaty. And then the
Wow.
chorus line was "Won't go away, treaty won't go away." And then there was a rap inspired by what was happening back then in 1996. I mean, this is how long ago that was massive protests around the government called for a public debate on the treaty. Gee, that sounds familiar, eh? They wanted to put a fiscal cap on treaty settlements. They wanted to do like everything's going to be settled, 1 billion, and so our people were like, well, hang on, let's wind it back a bit. So treaty was, written about that. That became a bit of an anthem. And then even in later years now, when I think about what's been going on it's only been a couple of weeks since the new government's been formed. I wrote a song on my 5th album, Seashells, and it was about deep sea sand mining.
Right.
Put your hands up to talk about, getting off the fence. It's far too crowded in terms of activism. So if I look back on the songs, and I'm Whole World's Watching came off my last album, and we're like, yeah, I think they are. They're watching us. We're about to repeal some groundbreaking legislation, So you kind of look at these songs and go, jeepers, that sucks. They're still relevant. Yeah, funny, eh?
And you're still doing it today. Chewy was talking, I know, before we came on. You're supposed to keep your powder dry, Chewy, but about some of your interviews, and that's what we've done here. We've showed portions of lots of your interviews that you've been having on Te Ao with Moana, and the David Seymour one, and Winston Peters, and they've just it is one of the best interviewing shows I think New Zealand's produced. And there's people in the chat. I don't know if you started those, Chewy, but there's people in the chat just talking about, how it's free flowing ideas, and it's just amazing, and it's so cool to have you on as well. And thinking about your sort of career, like I was singing A-E-I-O-U when I was a teenager, not thinking about it, like not thinking too much about it. And that's what I was saying. Looking back over some of the catalogs, and I'm like, so is that where I first learned the vowels for Māori? Is that where I first picked up on them without even knowing?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I used to get sick of my name being mutilated over intercoms at the airport, and people going, they say, "Oh, what's your name?" Moana Maniapoto. "Oh, can you spell it for me?" Well, after a few years, I said, "No, you spell it. Give it a shot, and then I'll correct you," because it just got really, really hoha. So that was a way of trying to say, okay, let's put our language, let's do something really basic. Because the funny thing is, when you travel around the world and you go to different countries, most countries, the way they pronounce the vowel sounds is very much like Māori, like Japan.
Yeah.
Parts of Europe and stuff like that. It's really only England that doesn't do it similar. So, Spain, blah, blah, blah. So, it was just part of a movement. And, of course, that was hard on the heels of, that was probably about 10 years after the Kohanga Reo movement got started. My son, who's my producer, he went to we had to build a Kohanga Reo. I mean, well, when I say we, I'm using the royal we kind of hired people who can do that stuff. In the early 90s, it wasn't the normal thing. In fact, I remember going back to my marae or talking to my parents and them going, "Oh, how's that going to work? We can't," my mum would say, "Oh, I won't be able to understand it." I go, "Mum, you just speak in English." We were kind of making it up as we went along. And then, the lovely thing is today, last week I went to my daughter, she's 15. I went to her prize giving at Western Springs Waitangi, which is in a co-governance relationship. Heaps of real, everybody really, really happy, awesome parents there. And today I went to my moko's kohanga, Reti mana at Richmond Road Primary. And you see all these little cute kids all singing away in the language, and you think, oh my God, everybody else, get with the program. I think it's really exciting how many people I know Pākehā even who've dedicated themselves to learning te reo. I think it's really, really reaffirming.
Yeah, it's interesting to look as well. I moved to Dunedin from Auckland about a decade ago. Yeah, from Auckland to Dunedin, and watching it in Dunedin, because when I moved to Dunedin, I felt like I'd moved to Norway. Like I'd gone away from living in West Auckland and going to the Mount Albert Pack and Save, and just it being a multi-coloured adventure, to Dunedin, where I counted 50 people in the Pack and Save, all white. And it just felt very strange. But in the decade it's been here, hearing how people are picking up on, or at least giving a crack to pronunciation and Māori words and vowels and stuff, and it's amazing to see, because I've always said that, you know, what differentiates us from, say, Australia, South Africa, these colonized, primarily Pākehā white, southern hemisphere countries, and it's the indigenous aspect of us, be it the people, or the plants or the animals. That's the only thing that's different. So we should all somewhat grab on to the Māori story, own it for ourselves, even if we're not kind of bloodlined into it, because if we're a Kiwi, then it should be a part of our story, surely.
I know, and I think one of the most exciting things with my band Moana and the Tribe, we travelled extensively. So from 2002 onwards, for well over 25 years, God, I'm so old. My band and I were travelling all over the world. We very rarely played in New Zealand. We played in all parts of Europe, across Russia, in places like Vladivostok and Moscow, in Asia, in South Korea, in Australia, various festivals, in Kanaki, Vanuatu. So we and what we found, and we went up to the Arctic, where the Sami people are the indigenous people that were at the top of Europe. Okay, and so you got indigenous people up there who are white, blonde, blue-eyed, staunch to the max, trying to save their languages that kind of got almost decimated by the Norwegians and the Swedish and the Russian and the Finnish. And when I first went up there and landed there, and I thought, and I've often told the story of my partner and I were taking some of our documentaries up there to a festival, the coolest festival in the world. That's what I was billed as, because it was freaking freezing. And, reindeers, the works. And I thought, we'll be the first Māoris there. No one will even know. You get a little bit of a thrill. It might be slightly exotic for a moment after being hammered at home. And then someone goes, are you the Māoris from New Zealand? And we go, yeah. Do you know Timothy Karetu? I'm like, are you kidding me? Do you want to come and see our kohanga reo? So up in this tiny little village called Inari in the Arctic Circle, 500 kilometres inside the Arctic Circle in Finland, they had a language nest that was modelled on the kohanga reo. And when my partner and I went back there about 8 years ago, I can't remember when, we met some of the graduates from that. And there was a young fella up there. He's the only rapper, hip-hop artist in the world performing in the Inari Sami tongue. And that's a direct result of the game-changing visionary movement that the kohanga reo started. That's taken off around the world. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, really cool.
Yeah.
I have a very good friend from Finland, and when she traveled through here, she drew lots of parallels between the preservation of Māori language and what the Sami people were doing, and what the Finnish people were doing to preserve their language as well, after being, part of two other countries in their history as well. So, I love it when people identify those parallels. And it just shows the value. Like when people say, or why would anybody want to learn Māori? What value does it have overseas? Well, you wouldn't say that to a French person. You wouldn't say that to an Italian person. So why do we not value something that is, exclusively from here?
Yeah, I know. And the biggest joke was, people would say, waste of time learning that language because you won't get a real job. Well, things have really changed over the years. Scotty Morrison, who's one of my haka performers, Polder Sharples. Scotty's on Te Karere every night. Polder Sharples is teaching up at the University of Auckland. Te reo is in great demand, and no matter what any politician or anyone says, it's celebrated. It's celebrated both here and overseas, and that colonizing experience is something that means that we can identify with a lot of people offshore and immediately build a rapport and share strategies. I was in Sweden at the Global Investigative Journalists Conference as a guest of the Indigenous Journalists Association, and met journalists from Colombia, from Canada, Taiwan, America, Hawaii, because we always think they're separate. And, you know, there was just this immediate boom. We get it. Okay, how can we work together? What can we collaborate? What are the challenges you're facing? Oh, they're the same as us. Oh, not enough Māori journalists, not enough Indigenous independent platforms, not enough resource going into investigative journalism. So, yeah, there's lots of exchanges going on around the world in media, justice, education, treaty, the arts, and that's what's really, and the climate, of course, that's what's really exciting.
I'd love to get your take on what I would technically call the horse shit going on in Parliament at the moment over the whole, you know, the Māori language, Māori names, changing the names of departments, although when they don't want to change it, like Kainga Ora, sorry,
Yeah.
all of a sudden it's okay not to change it, even though their agreement says they have to change it, but they're not going to change it because everyone knows it as that, but they are going to be forced to change it. And who are they speaking to, and what's that all about? What's behind it, do you think?
I mean, I'm sort of getting a little bit conspiratorial in that I think that sometimes we're getting distracted by these petty little arguments over te reo and you know, Māori Indigenous, blah blah blah, and that might be making us look away from some other bigger things that are happening, because it really is just pointless. Yes, they'll be speaking to a small base of people, but things have just gone too far. We've been on a roll for a long time, so I'm not convinced that there's any robustness around this kind of a strategy. I had kind of hoped that New Zealand First and these other parties, that once they got in, they'd sort of, you know, man up and kind of like stop all that carry on, and stop the sort of the biting, the slogans, the platitudes, the sound bites that all sound like New Year's resolutions, but there's no actual information on how to, you know, achieve these lofty goals. I'd sort of hope that they would morph from being very prickly kind of opponents in opposition to like, okay, we're going to stop running that previous lockdown, and here's how we're going to transform things. But there just seems to, unfortunately, be lots of New Year's resolutions and nothing grunty. It's visionary, just lots of peeling back. It's like cancel culture of mega proportions. It's quite radical too, I think.
Yeah.
Winding back, backtracking on every incremental step that many of us have felt frustrated about over the years, when you know, winding back on those. It's quite I think it's quite stressful. I find it quite stressful. My friends will find it quite stressful.
Yeah, it's certainly like, I mean, after the election, I was kind of thinking, okay, well, it'll be bad. We'll have stuff to talk about for 3 years, but at the end of the day, Labour and National aren't really that far apart. They're both centrist parties. It'll be okay. And then what we saw since then is it's just attack after attack after attack on Māori.
Yeah.
And it just seems mean and vicious, and it's just winding back so much progress over the last 20-25 years.
Yes.
That it's like, that's me as a white guy tucked away down here in New Zealand, you know, down in the South Island, that can see the benefits and is aware of where he lives in the world. I can't imagine what it's like to be Māori and to see this in the news cycle day after day after day after day. And as you said, look, you were talking about this in the 90s, and oh, look, we're back. We're still talking about it. Fantastic. How do you keep the momentum going?
Oh, well, it's a few Chardonnays does the trick. Honestly, it's going out and seeing our kids, and the mokos and young people that are sort of all fired up and ready to rock. But there are lots of Pākehā and other allies and champions, and so I remember on our show celebrating Pākehā allies and champions. And now I know that a woman who was a real game changer, Mitzi Ni, and she passed away, and her funeral is on tomorrow. Now, she was part of an anti-racist group in the 80s, her and the likes of Bob Lowe and Mitzi's husband, Ray Nen, people like Bernie Homfleck, who I think just turned 90. This is an older generation that really stuck their necks out back in the 80s, in the 70s probably, when people like Sid Jackson, Tutuwhai, a whole bunch of Māori were getting hammered. So you had this parallel growth. And I think that there are some wonderful allies and champions out there that understand that power sharing and the tiriti relationship is enabling. It's not a handbrake, as my friend Ngahiwi Moana described it. The treaty is an enabler. It's something that we can actually celebrate. It's something that's inclusive and it's visionary. And it's only the fragile and the fearful and, well, there's a lot of that around the world. We saw over in Australia how the voice to Parliament was undermined. And there are, as they told us in Sweden, multiple players across multiple platforms working to undermine things which often are focused on Indigenous people, because if you give Indigenous people rights and decision-making power, often that means decision-making power over biodiversity or around the climate, and that might mean putting the brakes on, oil and gas exploration or, fresh water being transformed into water bottling plants. So there's influences out there that are very well organised, right-wing think tanks that they spoke about a lot in Sweden that feed into, political rhetoric. Yeah.
We've got some questions that are coming in from people who are watching. First one is from Rua, MD. Has Luxon agreed to join Moana for an interview next year to give respect to Māori media?
I would hope so. We haven't reached out to him. The only interview that I secured with him was in April 2022. And, he had just come fresh in his job. He was very nice. We had a robust discussion around the direction of the health system. He insisted that the Māori Health Authority be disabandoned and that we go back to the previous status quo for the last, I don't know how many million years, of having a Māori health unit inside the Ministry of Health. He could not point to any evidence that justified that, but I sort of get the feeling that evidence isn't really a big thing at the moment with a lot of policy.
Another one, Ethan wants to basically know, have you got any predictions for Waitangi? It feels like Waitangi is going to be a cracker. I don't know whether that means good or bad cracker, but it's going to be, shall we say, volatile, whatever that also means. What do you think about Waitangi next year?
Jeepers, well, I'm going to be there. Come hell or high water, I'm going to be there. Waitangi has always been a cracker, and I think it would augur well for all the political leaders if they go up there. They will be challenged. It's interesting the number of political leaders from the north, Māori political leaders like David Seymour and Winston Peters, Shane Jones, Shane Reti. So, they'll be held to account. And I think, that they'll have to put up with it. They'll have to debate. They'll have to stand their ground, and they will expect a forceful opposition to many of their policies.
It feels like the conversations are a little bit upside down at the moment. Now, I'm not an expert, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we had Deb Ngaruapaka on the other night, and she was talking about the treaty actually being there so Pākehā could stay. So actually it's available for Pākehā to be here, and today we kind of see it as a Māori only thing. I was thinking as well about co-governance. We were talking about co-governance in time of the treaty. The treaty time was like allowing the settlers to come to the table with Māori because they were well outnumbered, whereas now it's flipped over and people are selling it as if it's, we'll let Māori come to the table. I'm wondering first, is that accurate? Thinking that it's kind of flipped, and do you have anything to speak to on that?
Well, I found it really fascinating, and this is one of the things, an ongoing argument that I have with David Seymour is about his interpretation of the treaty, because first off, it was an international agreement. It was an international agreement, and Debbie Ngaruapaka is quite right. It gave immigrants the right to have a relationship and have a place here in Aotearoa. Māori did outnumber Pākehā. All the conversation was in Māori. So Māori knew exactly what they were signing. They certainly would never cede sovereignty. I mean, that's what tribes would kill and die for.
It doesn't make any logical sense. You've got 100,000 Māori and 2,000 Europeans. You're not going to go, oh yeah, you guys can run the spot now. It doesn't make any logical sense.
Yeah, so that's how it was explained to me 1,000,000 years ago by people who were my mentors, Rob Cooper from Ngāti Hine and Ruarakina. So that's what it did was it created a relationship, and Kāwanatanga allowed the British and all immigrants to take care of themselves. The Crown would take care of themselves. They'd dumpty-doo, there's your laws, whatever. And Māori would chug along, as we do. And then where needed, there would be this, as Moana Jackson described, a relational space where you kind of come in the middle, So Ned Fletcher, whose huge book I've got my thing balanced on, it's like really, really big. It's so big that I'll drop my laptop. He did a huge 7-year thesis where he looked at the context and the history around the British signing and coming up with a treaty. And his conclusion was their understanding of cession, or whatever was given and taken, was exactly the same as Māori. There wasn't an assumption by the British at that time that they were completely in control. I mean, It doesn't make any sense to say otherwise. So you have this model. That is the ultimate co-governance model. The model we talk about with the Māori Health Authority is not an authentic, robust co-governance model. It's more of a devolution one, but it's one step up from the Crown going, okay, I think we'll pick those Māoris over there, those Māoris over there, and dish out the money, because you have Māori there, and they'll go, I think we will pick them, So the word co-governance has been a little bit kind of muted. And then of course the old numbers game happened. So when more and more immigrants came to New Zealand, Pākehā immigrants, suddenly they changed the rules and said, oh, we changed it now. It's one vote, one person, one vote. Well, that's why everyone's been arguing about it since forever. That's why there's been land marches, there's been battles, there's been petitions, there's been tribunals, because Māori don't accept that.
Hey, as someone that spent a bit of time talking to David Seymour, one question that I've got is he co-opts a lot of language that I would consider from race relations discussions, that we should all be equal and equal rights for everyone, and we definitely don't want apartheid and that sort of thing. And he's kind of co-opted those things that, of course, right-thinking people want things to be equal. But it comes from just completely wiping away any historical context to
Yeah.
what has happened in this country and others. Do you think, in your view, that comes from a personally held belief, or is it more an angle that he's playing? I mean, how has he come across to you?
I think it's ideological. I think because the same language is used, like in Australia around the voice. We heard the same things with Jacinta Price and Warren Mundine, who are two very high-profile indigenous politicians. We heard the same kind of stuff around separatism, division, racism. So the whole and I heard that from my friends in the States, my journalist friends, Native Americans and Native Canadians. So it's a common kind of a trope, and it reduces any discussion of the treaty down to one. They reframe it as something around ethnicity or race, when really it is about indigeneity. It's about indigeneity and it's about nationhood. I find the twisting of the word apartheid hugely offensive, and words like separatism and all that, because it also assumes that there's a level playing field. If you put the whole treaty thing aside, it's like, oh, we're all the same. Well, actually, we're not all the bloody same.
No, exactly.
And whenever I've talked to him about, because he'll go, we need to address the needs of people need to be addressed. Well, isn't it a funny thing that need and indigeneity and inequity all coincide? I mean, you'd think that you'd twig that there's something not quite right, you know? That they're one and the same thing. And that's the same for all colonized Indigenous people.
So I guess that's my follow-on then, is like, I don't want to say that Seymour is dim, but surely he's so close to making that jump. But he's just going, no, definitely not linking those things together. I'm just going to keep on hitting these talking points. And whenever I've seen him push back on, like you've done so well in your interviews, and I've seen him in that position before, he doesn't seem to have a fallback discussion or a point where he goes, well, maybe I need to think about this a bit more.
I think he's very clever. I think he's very savvy. I think he's someone I need to study more in terms of his interview technique, because he pivots, he twists, he'll come back with a question.
That's a good tactic it is.
Completely unrelated, like I'm talking about, the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, and somehow he ended up talking about, well, we need potholes fixed. And I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah, I remember
that. Yes.
Potholes.
It's like, oh, you want me to talk about this? I'm going to jump over here.
Yes, which is a very, very, clever technique. And it's a distracting one. And, I think him and Winston are very savvy with the media. I get on fine with them. I find both of them really challenging to interview because of their little games, and particularly Winston. He's got a thing about the media, but he was quite respectful when I interviewed him. He talks about the mainstream media. Blah, blah. Not you, Moana. I'm not saying you. But it's it was a real pleasure after. Oh my God, I did them both on the same day. Can you believe it?
Wow.
Yeah.
So there were a few stiff drinks that night. I'm taking it.
I had many. I had it for a couple of days. That's how triggered I was. And then I interviewed Debbie Ngāti and James Shaw, who I hadn't met. I hadn't met James, like one after another. I thought, oh, they're so lovely, because you're not having to go right back to basics.
Yeah.
That's the thing. You can actually, and even with Chris Hipkins, you can actually have a more nuanced discussion. You can go, well, why didn't you thing the capital gains tax, or why don't you push here, poor? Why are you so reticent, whereas with the other two, it's just like, no, we're all the same. you're just all being racist by raising the treaty, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, it was quite lovely to end on interviewing those other ones.
I think what we see in David Seymour in particular, if he is really smart, and Bomber said that as well, and you're saying that, then I don't believe him. Because if he's smart, he knows what he's saying. If he's dim, he might be an ideologue. Because I've said this to him in an interview. I've said to him that the reason people look at what you're saying and they tag the word racist or racial to it, or racially dividing to it, is when you ask for everyone to be the same, you only ever apply it to race. Like race is a protected class in the human rights, but so is gender, so is age, so is religion, so is disability. You're never saying let's make ourselves equal with all these disabled people. Well, you're never saying we all need to be equal with these older people. 65-year-olds shouldn't be able to get a pension when the 64-year-olds do. And he knows that. And if he never thought of it before, I've told him that. And he still kicks on this base about he wants to level what he thinks is the race element in society. The truth is, if he wanted to level it, there'd be a whole bunch up here that need to come down. That actually would be a way to level it, rather than just saying Maori are getting too much and this, that, and the other. So I mean, I'm not. You're not the only person who said he's smart, but I don't get smart with someone who can't see that link, unless he's just that much of an ideologue.
Well, he took a lot of inspiration from the institute that he was attending quite a bit in Canada, and they have a rather interesting record in terms of that sort of libertarian, thing. And actually, when I raised it with him, that institute had sort of been very dismissive of deaths of Indigenous people in residential care, he was actually surprised about that. But I think that, there are groups out there, part of the, the Atlas Network and stuff like that, that have got huge influence on different people, different politicians. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's links here. It's just starting to ring true in terms of looking at what happened in Australia and The Voice and people joining the dots.
Yeah.
I think Atlas Network being operating here and funding here and giving people ideas here is 100% what's happening. Yeah, no doubt in my mind.
You kind of feel like you're going down a rabbit hole when you start talking like that, and then you think, well, no, actually, there's a lot of there's rabbit holes, and then there's a whole bunch of like investigative and journalists and academics and researchers who can actually show these various connections. But yeah, it does sound kind of interesting, eh?
Hey, Moana,
in the summer break, I'm going to put one of those pin boards behind here that I'll link ideas with red threads and see how crazy we can go.
Thank you for joining us tonight. We've kept you for longer than we said we would, but it's been an absolute pleasure. Before you head off, two quick things, and I think there's one text in there that I definitely want to share, Chewy, and it's this one here. Shayad Taikato, my uncle Fetu Taikato was a dancer for Moana and the Moa Hunters back in the day. We have a What Now clip from way back. There you go.
Oh, gracious, there you go. I worked out that I've had 22. I wonder if that was a Kua Mākona video. See, I did a video on to try and help reach out to Māori to stop drinking as much, kind of ironic, and to stop smoking. So I had dances, and that might have been that one. But I was also just going to mention that today I've spent a lot of time on this week looking at the repeal of the smoke-free legislation, which has driven me and many, many people crazy, not just Māori either. It's created shock around the world. I interviewed a number of people over this. And in 1996, from 1996 to 2004, I was the National Māori Smoke-Free Coordinator. That was my job. My job was to kind of bring all these different hauora groups together. And when I think back in the day, we were talking about, let's have smoke-free marae, and all the aunties would go, oh, shut up, bugger off. And because they'd have these big fruit tins empty tins on the marae. You could smoke up large, chuck them in. You know, it took a lot of advocacy from many people to transform that, and to actually, when you think back to, you know, when we went smoke-free bars and cafes, and the horror was that, you know, all these businesses are going to collapse. Well, they went gangbusters. Everyone's happy chappies. So, you know, to sort of move now to this position where there's going to be a repeal of a very groundbreaking piece of legislation that would see a smoke-free generation in order to fund tax relief for people who don't need it, is horrific. So, yes, I've been working with some of our smoke-free advocates, putting clips together and writing about it. But yeah, that was the one that shocked everybody.
Yeah, I was going to ask you to wrap up. What's your memory from 2023? But maybe because that's so fresh in your mind, it might be this smoking legislation going. What about 2024? What are you looking forward to, if anything? I'm sure there's lots of things.
Oh my goodness, 2024. It's like, I feel like a little bit punch drunk from 2023. You know, we had Jacinda Ardern resigned way back in February or something, and then we had the cyclone. So I'm at Muriwai Beach, and that's still a mess for a number of people out there. And then the floods, and then we had, you know, this terrible war in Gaza, and it's been a tough year for a lot of people, eh? I kind of think that 2024 people are going to mobilise. I think that we're all going to get our marching shoes on. I think journalists are going to collaborate and share. I think academics and scientists are all going to come together. So I think, you know, in 2024, we're going to get ready to rumble in a very incisive, organised, strategic, positive way. That's my prediction.
I saw a TikTok the other day that, I'm paraphrasing it, but it was a guy taking the piss saying, who would know that we'd finally bring Māori together to speak with one voice, thanks to Winston Peters and David Seymour, two Māori from up north going the other way.
The irony is not lost on us. Yeah.
This has been so much fun. Thank you so much for, look, honestly, thank you for trusting us. I know you didn't really know who we are or anything, but trusting us and coming on and saying g'day. Really enjoyed it. And so is the chat. Everyone's going bananas to say we love you. So.
Oh, you're kind. Meri kirihi mite and kia kaha. Whawhai tonu tātou katoa. Ake tonu ake. Go out there and spread the word about the treaty, okay?
We will do. And you tell us anytime. Tell us anytime what you want to come back on or share stuff with us that we can share to our audience, Moana.
Thank you. Kia ora.
Right. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Thank you. Wow, this week's been huge. We've had so many good guests. Oh, what a cracker.
There are a couple of super chats. There's a couple of super chats that came in, but they weren't direct questions. And so I mean, we said to Moana, 20, 30 minutes, and she said, half past, and it's 15 minutes past that. So we just wanted to make sure, again, like last night, honoring the guest, giving them an out when they want to get out. But Spides has come in for a $10 super chat. Thanks, Spides. Interesting that me, learn te reo vowels from Moana's song, Pat. A-E-O-U. Up north, we learned it at Raumanga Primary and Intermediate in the 80s. We even did te reo spelling bees. I don't know if it's exactly where I learned it, but I realized today, looking at some of her back catalogue and looking at the songs, that a little penny dropped, and I'm like, she's been doing this forever. This is, and when I was teaching my kids, not that I'm a good teacher, but just at least pronunciation, it's like, that's what we did. R-A-E-O-U. And so just kind of the pennies dropped today that would have had an impact on it, on me altogether. Peter says as well, thanks for the $5 super chat, dude. There are a lot of national myths about, I wonder if national is supposed to be in speech marks. National myths about colonization that need to be dispelled. And Annalise says, BHN on fire, the girl on fire, the boys on fire, with intelligent, deepful thought guests this week. Moana is so interesting. Yeah. And as I said, I'm not trying to be greasy or anything, but Moana didn't know us, doesn't know what we've done, doesn't know who we are. Bomber put in a word for us, and she said yes to coming on. So I really appreciate, because that's actually, when you go and do this kind of thing, there is a vulnerability to it. We could be complete arseholes. Well, sometimes we are. And didn't know. And so she trusted someone's kind of saying that they're all right, and she came on, and it was great. It was great. What do you want to say? I've got a couple of stories to go through, Chewy, but floor is yours if you want to wrap up with anything about that.
Kind of a tangent. if you
Oh,
will.
really? It doesn't sound like you, Chewy. A tangent.
I know, it's
What?
crazy.
Crazy.
Revolutionary. I am so brave. No, I just wanted to say, like, when you look at that sort of mid 90s with New Zealand on air music funding for local musicians and music videos and how that they were getting played on TV and on radio and that sort of thing, and how it continued into the early 2000s, and then it started dying. We don't see so much like new artists come through with New Zealand on air funding, and I think when you look at some of the messaging that was coming through from Moana and the Tribe of Moana and the Moa Hunters and that sort of thing, maybe we've lost something there. There's a few people talking about some more modern instances of Māori language and music just recently getting some impact overseas. I could sort of mention Alien Weaponry would be in there as well as a band that's in my sort of circle.
Staniel Walker.
Yeah, Stan Walker. I was floundering for the name. Thank you so much.
He's just signed. And just so you know, I saw this on the news the other day. He's just signed to do like a massive, like the soundtrack for a massive film. The director in America saw him singing a song on Instagram or something, and basically has connected with him. And I just saw an interview from America come up in my YouTube algorithm, and it's like, whoa, it's amazing. So yeah.
And what a phenomenal time for music videos that they just worked out green screen. used in like every video from that time period.
Didn't it start off with blue screen? Wasn't it a blue screen first and it moved to a green screen?
Oh yeah, true.
I think. But yeah, there you go. Yeah, so this is, and the reason, just so you know, we haven't played the music is I don't want to get booted off YouTube. So that's the only reason we haven't played it. Even Moana probably would have said, yeah, go for it, play it. But there's algorithms that do things automatically.
Algorithm does not care.
The algorithm bastards. So cool, man. That was great. Thank you so much for you guys and the questions and stuff. And as is always the case. LNE, I don't know what that means. Can't unsee comment penalty. Something's been seen. LNE. All right. Thanks for the $5 super chat. Yeah, that was super cool. Super cool, guys. And tomorrow night, we're going to wrap up the year with Bomb Her. Bomb Her is going to be our last fan favorite. Remember, these are people that you guys have suggested as well. And we're just looking forward to having a chat with Bomber tomorrow night about everything and all that. And we'll wrap up the year. And then as a reminder, we're going to go through the rest of the year. And right up until when we come back, there is going to be shows and there are going to be clips on TikTok and Twitter and YouTube. They're just going to be best ofs. Let us say this, a huge thanks to our patrons for being involved. Love you guys to bits. We've had 29 patrons sign up in December. 20 of them have been paid patrons. So you guys are absolutely amazing. All of our beautiful patrons helping us out and helping us get by here and there. And today we've got Little Rob, and I think it's probably AKA the Cat down here. Little Rob and AKA the Cat. They're two people that I added to the billboard today. So thank you guys for being involved. Thank you for your patronage. If you're interested in supporting what we do, it's patreon.com/Big Hairy News. Pretty easy because that's sort of the name of the show. Patreon.com/Big Hairy News. What else, Chewy?
Are we going to talk about Nicola Willis's sausage?
You know what? I'm a bit pissed about that, actually, to be honest, because I think it's a massive distraction. I was watching the TV3 news article, and we will get to it, but seeing we've just had Moana on, I want to get to the story about Dr. Shane Reti first, because I think that's actually a really more interesting story. And what's happened to him and what his iwi are saying to him. If I can just find my tab. Do you know where my tab's gone, Chewy? Maybe I should do this first.
Is it in your other pants?
Hang on. Here we go. You ready?
Look at this.
Hey guys.
Suck it, Ghana.
Suck it, Ghana. Suck it, News Talk ZB. This is today's charts, #1 news commentary podcast in the country. Thanks to you guys. Appreciate that very much. If you don't know that we run a audio podcast, you head to Apple Podcasts and look us up, #BHN. So we're #1 in the country today. They do charts every single day, so we might be down to #2 tomorrow, but we're #1 today, so we celebrate it. That's
it. Lock it in. Just print screen. Never need to look at it again. We've done it.
Where is the
mission accomplished, people?
Here it is.
Just letting the interns know, Pat.
So Dr. Shane Reti's facing a bit of an embarrassment at the moment. His iwi is kind of, for want of a better word, calling him out because of the smoke-free legislation gone. This is a story technically from yesterday, but I actually think it's a huge story. Two parts of this story. The first is Dr. Shane Reti is being called out, but the second is there's another GP in the National Party, and when they ask her about getting rid of smoke-free legislation, she basically says, I better not comment on that. And she's a GP, so I wonder why. Let's have a listen. Hopefully the audio will work. I'm sure it'll be fine.
The Health Minister's iwi are making a public appeal to him to halt the scrapping of some smoke-free laws. But as political reporter Amelia Wade explains, Shane Reti disagrees.
During peak pandemic, Dr Shane Reti got on the tools with his iwi Ngāti Wai to get Kiwis jabbed.
With Kia ora Ngāti Wai, we're actually going out to the communities for the rest of this week as well.
Hey, a little side question. Why are the news agencies adopting the language of the anti-vaxxers? Why are they saying jabbed? You know, that's what the anti-vaxxers, oh, it's a jab. It's not a vaccine, it's a jab. Why are the TV3 news agencies co-opting that language? He went out to help get people vaccinated. I thought about that when I watched it last time, and I know it's not about the story, but it made me wonder out loud.
Well, to try and remove the hurdle of distance.
Reti is now the health minister, and Ngāti Wai again wants the doctor's help.
What is the most important thing? It is people, it is people, it is people. We're sick and tired in our communities of having to bury our whanaunga, bury our people earlier due to smoking-related illnesses.
The Ngāti Wai Trust Board are making a public appeal to Reti and Deputy Prime Minister Winston Peters, who are both of Ngāti Wai descent.
Hello.
You know, we have an obligation to give voice to anything that we see is wrong. And this is something fundamentally wrong. There's nothing good in this.
What I say to that is we're committed to reducing the smoking rates and remain committed to doing that.
Do you know anything about the Ngāti Wai? You know who started the Ngāti Wai organisation? Who set up the Ngāti Wai Land Retention Committee in 1974-75?
God, oh my God. He is fucking impossible. Talk about bloviating. He sounds like that fucking teacher of Charlie Brown. Remember the teacher in Charlie Brown? The kids would be talking and all the teacher did was went. It's just ridiculous. Either answer a question or fuck off. It's ridiculous.
The smoke-free generation.
Yeah, it is actually. So what happens when it gets caught out?
Time.
We didn't play it last night, but when he got asked about what was kainga order means, he took about a beat or two and then went on the attack. You could see it. They didn't play it in the news. I had the clip of all of it, but yeah, I agree. It's his first. It's like a, you know, if you've got a wounded dog in the corner of the room and you're trying to get it, it strikes out. Because I've said this before, this is going to be really disrespectful by some people. He is someone who used to have a lot of mana in this country and he's losing it and he's trying to grab back at it and he's missing. He's grabbing and missing. That's my honest held belief. I know some of you will find that disrespectful, but it's like he's trying to grab that mana back that he used to have and the grabs aren't missing. The grabs aren't hitting. He's missing them and he's just becoming old man yells at cloud. It's just ridiculous. Anyway, keep going.
Reduced cigarette retailers and lowered nicotine levels all combined were estimated to save 8,000 lives. But they're going up in smoke after ACT and New Zealand First got scrapping them into their coalition deals.
Our concern is that those involved will be synonymous with not only the decision to repeal, but the outcomes of that decision.
Not when the ambition is still to drive down smoking rates.
The ambition is to drive down smoking rates. That's like saying, I have an ambition to drive from Dunedin to Christchurch next week. Why have you taken the engine out of your car? Well, no, it's okay because I have an ambition to drive from Dunedin to Christchurch, but your car has no engine. Yeah, but I have an ambition to drive from Dunedin to Christchurch. In that car? Yeah, in that car. The one with no engine, doesn't matter. I have an ambition to drive. That's how ridiculous it is, Chewy.
Yeah. You know how much money smokers have been taxed? $8.6 billion, which is more than all the Treaty Waitangi settlements. That's what your sort of thing has done for Maori.
Reti is one of two doctors in National's midst.
Here we go.
Do you still support denicotisation?
So the whole thing that's going through at the moment is the responsibility of the Associate Minister of Health,
Well, Vanessa Wenick, a GP, used to support it. 2 years ago, when the measures were proposed, she posted on Facebook, the nicotine level idea is a good one.
Yes, so now I have a role as a backbench MP and it's not appropriate for me to comment on those issues.
Choosing no.
Really? So now that you're a part of National, all of a sudden you're not allowed to share your honest health belief as a GP and a previous health professional. Really? What was this about free speech on the right, Chewy? What was that thing about free speech and all that?
Big off. That is a maximum off, my dude. The absolute panic in her eyes since that question came out.
But this is what I'm saying. This is actually a really big story.
No comment over her own clear personal views.
That'll do us. I wanted to get that out there. So Shane Reti, his iwi, is saying, what the fuck are you doing, dude? We're trying to stop our people dying, and the legislation that you're putting in, your government's putting in, and you as the health minister, is going to contribute to our people dying. Oh, but my car with no engine and no wheels, I have an ambition to drive it to Christchurch.
Yeah, and it's the theme of this government. You know, we remain committed to our climate goals, but we've removed all of these things that would help us do it. We definitely want to encourage people to use EVs, but we've removed everything that encourages people to use them. Of course, we want te reo to be valued, but we're going to remove all value from it. It's this stuff doesn't just happen organically, or if it does happen organically, it happens a lot slower than it could do.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's the fuel on the fire. Things. I mean, that's what they've said. We showed this graph about the smoking, that the rate up to 2080 would drop down, and if we kept the legislation, it would be down below that level at 2030. It was like a 50-year difference of the current decline versus the introduced decline via smoke-free 2025. So it's unfathomable. And I mean, and he can't listen. You know what's going to be? He's going to leave politics. This is Dr. Reti, and he's going to do what right-wingers do when they leave politics. He's going to grow a fucking conscience, and then he's going to start talking about how that was a mistake. Just like all those GOP guys, once they left and could say what they believe about Trump, just like Chester Burrows when he left and he could start to talk about gang patches, all these guys on the right, they find a heart and they're free from obligations to their funders, my honest hell belief, once they leave politics. I guarantee it. Go and write it in your diaries, Fano. He will, when he leaves politics, look back with regret at this decision.
Yeah. And we haven't even talked about the other reason that Reti was in the news this week.
Why? What have
so he's responsible for reviewing, and I forget the name of this program, but the program that gets more Māori people in medical training. He was a direct beneficiary of that program.
Yes.
And now they're reviewing it.
Yes. Yes, I did hear that headline.
This really does, like, fuck, we love it when this happens, right? When someone gets all the benefits of a particular government bootstrapping program, and then once they're there, they fucking pull the ladder up.
Yeah.
My fury will be righteous and white hot if he manages to can that program, because like it's a common whipping boy. Like those, I hate this term, affirmative action type programs are a common whipping boy of white supremacist sort of structures in society, right? Oh, everyone should be equal. If you've got the grades, you should just be able to get in. Again, completely ignoring everything that may have affected that person's life that meant that they maybe don't get all the grades. But that's just to get them in. They still have to get the graduating grades once they're there.
Yep.
It's a step up, not a fucking, bypass the whole thing and get to the end. Here's your trophy. Fuck off.
Yeah. And look, and this is something that people need to be aware of. There's also entry reserved for rural candidates. You don't hear any politician ever talking about we're going to get rid of entry for rural candidates, do you? Never. Why? Because it doesn't make a good headline. It doesn't feed the base. In fact, the base wants their beloved little child from the farm to be able to become a doctor, but they don't want the Māori living in urban Auckland to be able to do that. So there's lots of things that rural New Zealand get that city dwellers can't get. They don't talk about any of those because they think those are their voters. So they leave those. That's okay. No, because we need more rural doctors. Yeah, we need more Māori doctors. What's the difference? Morons.
Yep.
Hey,
and as mentioned in the chat, it's called Mapas. It's got a different name down here in Otago, I believe, a different program, same goal. And DIY Guru also mentioning that Reti's daughter also went through the same program. So, like, if I was to be charitable, if he's reviewing it right, he should very clearly be able to go, well, in my own personal experience and in my daughter's experience, it's a great program and it's going to stay.
Yeah.
That's what should happen, right?
Carl's jumped on the bandwagon, and again, that's the origin story of most minority right-wing supervillains. Villains. They'll make James Meagher pull the ladder up as well. Kind of feels like they make a point of it. There you go. So,
yeah, absolutely.
All right. Hey, let me just remind you guys as well. We've got a bit of a special running at the moment. If you're interested, it's different. It's a different sort of a product. It's actually Beardy Boy product, and there it is. We've got caps and we got t-shirts. It's a very limited run. We have them in stock. They get sent out the next day. Obviously, with Christmas, etc., there'll be a few days for it to get to you. But because they're in stock, we only have a limited range. Got good Otago colours there. Yellow t-shirt, blue. You can see we've got small, mediums, large, and extra large left. That's all we've got. Apologies to people who have sent me emails saying, "Can we get this size?" Not this time around. This is the end of line run of stock, and because it is all the way through to when we come back, and while stocks last, obviously there's 25% off anything in the store simply by using the code SUMMER, and that'll be able to get you some Beardy Boy merch if you are interested in it, and much appreciated for that. All right, we better do this last story, which is supposedly the biggest news story of the day, but you know, it was kind of a bit, to be perfectly honest. The mini micro budget. I got to say, News Hub seems to be doing better analysis of news stories at the minute, just in the last wee while. I'm quite interested.
Yeah.
If you want straight news, TVNZ seems to be doing better straight news, but News Hub, I think, is doing better diving just one layer deeper and finding out some more answers and asking some different questions. I don't know if it's Lloyd Burr who's responsible for that, but two of the reasons we play News Hub's clips quite a lot. One is they're much better on YouTube, you know, to be able to get them up more quickly. But the second is they're actually bringing some different angles to these stories. TVNZ is just reporting the facts, which is great. We use that as well. News Hub seems to be, you know, just joining a few dots here and there, and it makes for better commentary, in my opinion. So let's have a look at News Hub tonight, talking about the minuscule mini dot budget.
Teeny tiny.
After some big promises, the new finance minister's first big test.
It's the mini budget, and it's the new chapter for a new government with economic responsibility at its core.
I got to stop this for a second because I got to actually show there's something else I want to show as well. And this is very unprofessional because I'm doing this in front of you all, but I got to show you the tweet I put out this morning before the budget came out. The tweet I put out this morning said this.
This is very smooth, man.
Thanks, man. Here we go. Nicola Willis's mini budget today will focus on how she says Labor left the books. They had all the financial information via pre-fu before the election, but they have had to give ACT and New Zealand First more than they can afford. Now they're scrambling for a scapegoat. I went on to say National has started the gaslighting by talking about how Labor left the books using words like arsonists. It's a tactic to sell a narrative that will continue today in today's mini budgets. They're doing it because they cannot generate the revenue they need whilst giving tax cuts, that's a big part of it, and money to landlords to carry out the promises they have made and have had to give their coalition partners to get into power. Don't believe it. They knew exactly the state of the books, thanks to pre-fu, and now they want you to look away and not hold them accountable for their miscalculations. So that was what I put out this morning. And, you know, I'll just casually float around until I find the tab I was on before. I don't know where it is. It's somewhere, is it? Is that it? No, that's not it. Oh, that was it? No, that's not it. That was it. Sorry.
I'm pretty sure that's the one that you were playing.
I'm a professional. We'll keep going.
Indeed, ultimately, just a manila folder with 6 pages of press releases.
6 pages of press releases.
Pretty thin. Mm-hmm. Is there absolutely anything new that you're announcing today?
Yes, I'm announcing that an era of fiscal and economic mismanagement is over.
Right. The announcement is an era of fiscal management is over.
Oh,
Mismanagement is over.
fucking
That's
hell.
the announcement. That's the announcement. That's it.
Look, it's just a bunch of press releases. On that basis, come upstairs, I'll do a mini budget for you now.
Kiwis struggling with the cost of everything and hoping for more cash for Christmas will have to settle for a promise.
There is much work ahead to clean up the mess that Labor left us.
There you go.
But Kiwis should approach Christmas knowing better economic management has arrived and lower taxes are on the way.
How about some details? How about some details about what Labor's done? Have you noticed every time they've said it, they haven't given any details? Like they haven't. They talk about financial cliffs, but they're just beating it up, talking about things that are funded to a point that they need to get refunded, which is common practice in government. So they're not giving any details, they're just using words.
She talked this up for weeks.
Yep.
And I just want to give a shout out to the reporter there that was going, are you fucking kidding me? I came in for this. I could have been at home with my kids. Fucking hell. Like, just the disdain that she had for that. This is a piss take. It is showboating, and it is setting up the narrative that the reason that they are not going to follow through with the shit that they've said isn't because they didn't do the sums ahead of time. It's because Labor fucked everything all up. Like, she's never seen their books. Like the what is it? The Prefu?
Yeah, Prefu.
Prefu. Like they never saw that. Like, oh, we had no idea what Labor were doing. Fuck off.
Yeah,
you knew
I
exactly
agree.
what they were doing.
Often
you were doing bumper stickers rather than math.
All right, let's keep going, shall we?
Liz has worked out how to cut and save more than $7 billion through culling some of Labor's projects like Let's Get Wellington Moving, 20 hours free childcare for 2-year-olds and half-price public transport, and spending cuts to the public service.
I reject austerity. We're actually doing the opposite. We're taking the responsible steps to protect frontline services.
Willis also got to show Kiwis the fiscal cliffs she's been warning about.
The value is $7.2 billion over the forecast period.
But most of those were already known, like needing money for the school lunches program and for Farmac.
School lunches? Gone.
Just because they are well known doesn't mean they're okay. I believe this represents a fiscally reckless approach.
Time-limited funding has been a very regular feature of budgets. I think she's tried to make accusations that don't stack up.
While there was a lot of talk of cliffs and financial time bombs, what was missing from the mini budget were the details of how she's going to pay for her mega tax cuts, or even who gets them first.
Who do you think deserves a tax cut first, landlords or Kiwi workers?
Kiwi workers.
Kiwi workers. Kiwi workers, by far and away. Kiwi workers.
You guys must have forgot who you voted for then.
Because, of course. I'm not sure, honestly.
I'm a landlord. I think Kiwi workers.
No one is any the wiser today as to how National will pay for their tax cuts than they were yesterday.
It could be that tax cuts are partly funded by a crackdown on tax evaders.
I've been advised that this could contribute hundreds of millions of dollars.
Do you honestly think that this government, with the funders they have, are going to have to go after, let's be fair, some of those same funders to catch up with their tax? Do you honestly think this government is going to go after the wealthy people who use the tax system in that way? Honestly.
Pat.
Yeah, I'm here.
Don't you look too deeply into it, mate.
Sorry.
The
fact the vibe?
Shit can report that would point out what we can do with the tax to make it more effective and more equitable. The one that they just shit canned.
Yep.
Don't worry. Don't worry about it, man.
All
Don't worry about it, bro.
I'll stop worrying. I'm not.
The names on that list are going to be completely different.
Yeah.
From the National Party donors list.
Yeah.
There's no way. There's no way. Yeah. So we don't need the information. Remember, we're saving money by shit canning that report, even though it's already been done.
Yeah.
And I assume the money that they're saving is on photocopier paper.
Yeah.
because the report's already been done.
Yeah. Second-hand photocopier paper. Reliable stuff. It's probably where it is, Joey. Reliable second-hand photocopier paper.
To our bottom line.
That was a New Zealand First idea.
Can I ask you about tax evasion?
Stupid question.
Tax evasion? Your plan for tax evasion?
But it was his evasion of a question about how tax cuts will be funded that saw Peters score an own goal.
The Minister of Finance has already found it.
What's that smoking?
No.
Peters taking exception to being heckled from all sides across the House.
That sort of clownish cacophony of behaviour doesn't work.
But it was Willis who stole back the show, albeit unintentionally.
What New Zealanders care about is the size of the sausage, not how it's delivered. And how we will deliver it is...
I just, honestly, it's a really important day. There are a lot of people who are going to be impacted after today, and the amount of the media that have just picked up on this and think it's a bit of a giggle.
How big is his hole?
We all get it. She made a faux pas. Perhaps she did it on purpose to take some attention away. Some people are saying that. But I just, honestly, it's more important things happening today that are going to impact real New Zealanders than a stupid misword.
Does the size of the sausage matter?
Yeah, no, we're done with you guys. I'll play you one more. I'm going to play you one more.
If I could put an analogy,
Yep.
I think, cool. Most Kiwis do care about how the sausage is delivered. I think a lot of Kiwis would be concerned about what the sausage is made of.
Yeah.
Like if we're going to use a sausage analogy, is it sawdust and homeless people? I can believe that's on the menu with these guys.
I just think this, right? You will not deviate me from this message. Every cent you give back in tax cuts, which I'm telling you now are going to be much smaller than they promised, and every cent you give to landlords is a cent that could be paying for under twos childcare, children using buses, could be paying for lunches in schools. So there was a question in that, which is I think maybe it was on the TV NZ item where they said, why are you prioritizing landlords over taxpayers? Because landlords are getting their money really quickly. The general folk are getting a tax cut perhaps in the future. The other thing that you will not get me away from is, if the books are so bad, why are you reducing your revenue? Why aren't tax cuts gone already? Gone by lunchtime? Why is not the money to the landlords gone by lunchtime? I cannot take you seriously if you say the books are in a shambles, have some money back. That is not a serious person. Those are not serious policies, Chewy.
No. Landlords are fine. You know why? Because no matter how long they hold on to their property and how long their tenants pay off their mortgage, interest rates might change a little, but you've still got someone living in your house paying off your investment for you. They are fine because they have untaxed capital gains at the end of it. That's why anybody ever does it. They don't need interest deductibility. They don't need it because of the untaxed capital gains that they get at the end. The fact that someone else is paying for their investment. It's fucking mental.
I'm going to play you this. This is the TVNZ clip, because remember what Mr. Luxon told us, that everything they were going to do was going to put downward pressure on rentals. I want to play you one. It's only like 60 seconds. One quick clip.
Landlords will benefit sooner with interest deductibility to kick back in on April the 1st.
Why are tax breaks for landlords more important than tax breaks for ordinary New Zealanders?
Well, I think tax breaks for ordinary New Zealanders are incredibly important.
Then why aren't you prioritising them? See, when logic doesn't work?
I also think it's important that we look at the other cost pressures New Zealanders are facing, and rents have been a significant one.
I think it says everything about this government's priorities, that of the very few decisions that they've made in this half-yearly fiscal update, they're cutting funding for things like early childhood education, and they're giving tax breaks to mega landlords.
There's two people I want you to watch. They're coming up now. One is the landlord you will never see a bigger smile on your face than you will get from this person hearing the news. And the second is the person who is in the investment property world, who says, carte blanche, rents will not go down.
Of course
right?
they won't. When have they ever gone down?
No. But this is a investment property person. This is someone that they're giving the tax cuts to. He doesn't have their back. He shows their workings. So that's the last bit I want to show you.
Amongst the cuts is a cost of $180 million by reducing the bright line test to 2 years rather than 10.
So there you go. Because of that policy, they are now adding more costs on. So they're actually reducing their revenue again by having to not get that bright line test sooner, but taking it away sooner. So they're even choosing to reduce their revenue.
Bring great relief next year when they finally announce
Look at the smile
of it, but until then we're just holding on hope that it will be brought back in quickly.
We probably won't see rent drops because that comes off, but it will tend to restrict the rate of increase.
We probably won't see rent drops. There you go. Showed their workings. It's over and done with. Anything you want to throw out there, Chewie? Any chats or anything?
I've said this fucking multiple times, right? If they were honest, if they were going to follow their word and make things better for more New Zealanders, they would look at the things that cost New Zealanders the most. They would look at the bank's profits. They would look at the supermarket profits. They would break up the supermarket duopoly. They would really put the shits up the people that are gouging both ends of our food network. They're gouging the producers and the consumers, and they're funneling their money overseas to Australia. Why both parties haven't decided to fucking WWF tag team these motherfuckers, I do not know. It's such a win for both sides. For everybody who enjoys food, we're going after the supermarkets. No, we can't do that. Can't do that. But suddenly our tax relief in the form of interest deductibility is somehow going to break a record for something that has never happened in the history of the property owning class, that they are going to reduce rents. Sorry, introduce downward pressure, whatever the fuck that means. Because we can't say it would reduce rents because we know they fucking won't.
I have a question for you. Would you like to get one step angrier before the end of the night, or should we just wrap it up?
Fuck, why not? I'm at a 9. Bring me home, Daddy.
I'm going to make you one step angrier in a second. First, we'll do this. So Kenny's Dead says, on New Zealand Music, love the Beast War shirts, Chewie. $2 super chat. Thank you for that. Kooky says, alas, my eyes. Alas, it is the end, and I have arrived. Well, that was quite a long time ago. We're still fucking going, aren't we? And Carl says, Willis, fuck feeding kids. Landlords need money. And do I show the chat from Brendan? I guess I might as well. Brendan says, Pat, did I leave a giant bottle of tomato sauce at your place a few weeks ago? This is not code. I mean a literal bottle of tomato sauce.
Ladies and gentlemen,
$5 super chat.
This is how you do a super chat.
Yes,
absolute
you did.
Gold standard.
Okay. I don't have too much to say about this. A lot of people will have seen this. You may have seen this as well, Chewie. I'm going to make you madder because I like seeing a Chewie have a rant. You ready for this?
Does he agree with Christopher Luxon with regard to the clean car discount? Quote, I think if I can pay, I should pay. And if so, when will he pay?
We've talked about this before. Those are the fears of my wife. If you're trying to get to there.
Well, Mr. Speaker, which of the following statements, therefore, does he agree with? Christopher Luxon on the 6th of April, I've got one Tesla, a little Tesla Model 3, yep, and I think I've got to say they're fantastic cars. Christopher Luxon on the 13th of May, I have an electric car, a Tesla, I love it. Or Christopher Luxon on the 14th of June, and again now, I don't have a Tesla, my wife has one.
Point of order, Honourable Chris Bishop.
There you go.
The Leader of the Opposition is very well aware that the Prime Minister is not responsible for statements made by Mr Luxon, which may or may not be accurate, before he became Prime Minister.
Did you get that?
What? What
because,
the fuck was this?
Because the questions are going to the Prime Minister. They're not going to Christopher Luxon. They're going to the office of the Prime Minister. So the Bish can literally get up and say...
Oh my fucking God.
He can literally get up and say how this works in the House is he's not the Prime Minister is not responsible for the statements of Christopher Luxon because he's the Prime Minister, and you're talking about someone before the Prime Ministership. Listen again.
Honourable Chris Bishop.
Leader of the Opposition is very well aware that the Prime Minister is not responsible for statements made by Mr Luxon, which may or may not be accurate, before he became Prime Minister.
Will he pay back the more than $8,000 he's received from the Clean Car discount his government has now repealed?
As I've previously explained, the car is owned by my wife. Those are her financial affairs. I wouldn't bring in the affairs of your family member into public discourse because she's not the public figure.
I think that's actually a very fair point.
The now Prime Minister claimed that he owned the car himself.
Well, look, the realities of that are not immediately evident to me because I don't have those papers in front of me. All I'm saying is that it has been a fairly long-standing convention in this House not to bring family members into the debate.
If a minister mentions their family in the answer to a question in order to avoid answering the question, it is legitimate to therefore ask them follow-up statements about their own statements.
Firstly, the line of questioning is out of order because it relates to matters that are not within the Prime Minister's responsibility. Secondly, notwithstanding that clear statement of the obvious, the Prime Minister has deigned to provide a commentary in which he has said that the matter that the member is referring to relates to a family member, and I would encourage members opposite to uphold the long-standing convention that you, Mr Speaker, have referred to.
Point of order for recipients.
I want to be very clear based on the accusation from Christopher Bishop. I did not bring Christopher Luxon's wife into the debate.
He did not.
Yeah, absolutely.
Christopher Luxon brought his wife's name into the debate. So I just thought that'd be a nice thing to keep you up for the next 6 hours if we watch that, Chewy.
No, that's... Oh, Chris Hipkins brought my wife into it. No, you threw her in like a fucking smoke bomb. Ah, I didn't say it. Like, oh, Jesus. And I think anybody that is in a marriage or a committed long-term relationship to go, oh, fuck, I don't know what my partner does. She can go out and spend 80 grand. I'm not consulted in it.
Yeah, it's not a good look
either. It
either.
doesn't matter that I said that I have a Tesla like several times. You know,
Well,
so we're going to go back to the parliamentary rule book and points of order because my boss is fucked up big time.
Yep. All right, Citizen Gold, $20 super chat. Thank you. It's very generous. I've been addicted to US politics since 2016 for some reason and have been needing a New Zealand talking head show. Love the coverage you all provide. Well, thanks. Thanks, CG. And I think you'll find that, you know, depending on how we do this thing next year, what we do, American politics will probably be at least a part of this show. I think always we're going to need to provide New Zealand stories to New Zealanders. That's what our core is. But, you know, the presidential campaign will be the biggest story in the world next year. And so that'll certainly be a part of what we talk about.
We can't not talk about an ongoing train wreck.
Did you hear today, the news today?
About Colorado, the state that I'm going to.
Donald Trump's
out the red carpet for me.
Donald Trump's been taken off the ballot in Colorado by the Colorado Supreme Court because of him being an insurrectionist. However, it went from the lower court to the Supreme Court, and now it'll go to the Supreme Court of the US of the United States. That was the Supreme Court of Colorado. And if that passes and gets upheld, you watch the challenges all over the world. Although I do think, you know, if Biden sticks around, I'm meaning alive, there's only if he goes up against Trump, there's a good chance he loses. Maybe there are other younger American right-wing lunatics who have better chance against Biden. So I don't know. It's a you know, what is it? What do I say? It's a giant douche or a turd sandwich. You don't really have much more to say about it. Dave for the $2 super chat. Thanks for that. I just got here and we still going. Yeah, because we're not at an hour and a half yet.
Big week. It's a big week.
All right, I'm done. I'm done now though.
Right. So now it's Chewy's tangent time that we haven't done a graphic for yet. No, I haven't got any tangents. I'm sorry.
Do you know what I was going to do? I thought I might do this for next year. Because in the YouTube chat, there's always the comments that are withheld. And I thought at the end of every week, we might do a section, which is the withheld comment section, and just show people some of the absolute lunatics out there. It's hilarious. I look at the withheld comments a fair bit, actually.
I was having a nice little back and forth in the YouTube comments today on one of our videos from earlier in the week where someone accused us of being brought and paid for.
God, I wish.
No, someone brought us here, Pat. I assume he means bought, but educational standards and all of that sort of stuff.
Brought, bring, bought, buy. Brought, bring, bought, buy. Yeah, it is hilarious, actually. It's actually hilarious, all the people who want to criticize us for our intelligent stuff. The ones that do that are normally the best spellers in the world, actually. That's the funniest one to do.
I don't often look, like, I love our chat here because it's our own little fun hour and that sort of thing. I don't often go back and look at the YouTube comments of old shows, but there's gold in them there hills. I tell you what. And it's like we said, we don't expect everybody to fucking agree with us. In fact, some of our regulars love bring up counterpoints, and it's absolutely fine. Just bring your receipts, bring you some examples, and we'll have a fucking great time. But most of the negative comments that I see in the YouTube somehow think that I am in a basement and that Pat is in a basement.
Well,
they're half right.
I'm kind of am.
Yeah, but you're in your own basement. You're not
but
in your mother's basement, which is the accusation.
Well, my mother died in 2018, so I'm certainly not in her basement. I'm in the lower level of my house.
Yeah. And I'm not in my basement.
You're in your sex dungeon.
No, I'm in my look at my nerdatorium.
Nerdatorium.
You know, this is the only space. Only the man with the confidence of already having a wife would have a room like this. You know, and it's what is it? Beardy soy boys.
Oh, neckbeards. What's a neckbeard? Sort of I've seen neckbeard a few times.
When your beard goes all the way down. As you can see, mine stops up here at a respectful place. You can see my delicious neck.
But what is it? But that's used like it's an insult, calling someone a neckbeard. Yeah. I'm like, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
Anyway,
I know it's like woke. It doesn't need to make sense. But the main thing is that it's a personal attack rather than going, hey guys, here's why your position's wrong, and I have the receipts. That takes too much effort. But you can just drop in shit out of poor grammar, poor spelling, ad hominem attack, and just flip off. And then when I come in and go, well, actually, mate, I think you mean bought and paid for, and the only people that have bought and paid for us are our Patreons. So that's why I'm sending this reply from my private island.
As I cruise across on my my two Teslas, one for each butt cheek, getting all the way over there.
It's not my Tesla, Pat. It's my wife's. That's her fault.
Speaking of that, Citizen Gold just subbed us another $20 or super chat. I think that's very generous. And
you're going to have to redo the billboard again.
And became a patron on Patreon. I still get those things back. So thank you, CG. Appreciate your patronage. And I think we're done. If you want to do a tangent again, I'll just leave and you can shut it when you're ready.
I got one comment and then we're done. Promise. Angie says, would you ever cut the beard for charity? Ooh. I have once and only once for the Starship Children's Hospital. And when I was given a certificate for fundraising for Starship, someone said that was very brave and to be very proud of it. And I said I would never do this again.
My problem with that...
Nobody deserves it.
The answer is probably yes, but my problem is I don't grow hair very fast. I basically have never taken any length off this, and I've been growing it since 2017. So this is as long as it's got in like 6-ish years, 2018, 5-6 years. So this is a lot of work. So if it was for charity, it would have to be something pretty spectacular. $200 to Habitat for Humanity. No, I was just listening to Two Bears, One Cave with two American comedians, and they, as a part of their podcast in the episode, donated a whole house to Habitat for Humanity. They went, oh, yep, we'll get one.
I am rapidly scrolling through my photos to find a picture of me without a beard.
I can show you one of me.
People need to know that it's a very mean thing to bring up.
I expect everyone to have left by the time we finish this because we are meandering now. This is a bit ridiculous.
This is not meandering. We can meander much harder than this.
No, this is meandering. View your channel.
Oh, God. No, we're not doing high school ball photos, I'll tell you that much.
All right.
Oh fuck, here it is. I've got it, Pat.
I've got one for me
I've
too.
got it. What do I want? I want that. Okay. Chat, you asked for this. This is your own fault, and I think it illustrates the emotion of the actual time that I did it. Are you ready? God, the people that have left, they're going to kick themselves. You can tell them about it later. Are you ready?
Yes.
There you go.
Oh, good Lord. Who is that weirdo?
Unhappy.
All right, my turn. Are we ready? Are you ready?
Go on.
3,
Bring it.
2. This is probably 50 kilos heavier as well. 1.
No.
Yeah.
No fucking way.
Yeah.
That is not you.
Yeah, listen.
You've just grabbed a picture of a man from the internet.
No.
I don't even believe it. I'm not believing this chat. Nah.
That's me.
Why have you put a picture of a stranger up there?
Yeah, this is my product I made a long time ago. This is the origins of Elephant TV, something I still kind of do every now and again.
I don't like it. It's unsettling.
No, neither.
It's uncanny valley.
No, neither. All right. Sorry for the nightmares, Fano. Oh my gosh, there's more super chats. Hang on. Got a citizen gold again. Dude, it's okay. But thank you. We appreciate it.
Put the wallet away.
We don't want to break your banks, but thank you. Appreciate it.
I once heard the saying that beards are makeup for men.
Mm-hmm. Beard is a makeup for men.
I see the question. What EB Games was that? That was EB Games Lower Hut.
I actually, do you know what I think? I don't think that's you. I think that picture in the background with the red beard is actually you. That's who I think the real Chewy is. So zoom into that, please. That'll be the one.
Can I zoom into it?
So that was before you shaved it off.
Yeah. I had a very talented person do that picture, and basically the previous year we were doing fundraising, and it's very hard to fundraise at the best of times, but in Lower Hut it was really tough.
Yeah.
And it really got to me because you'd be going, hey, do you want to donate $1 for sick kids? And people go, nah. And it was just like that all week. But at that point, I think the previous year we'd raised $200. And so I set an unwinnable target based on that. I said, look, if we get $800, I'll shave my beard off. Let's do a poster. Let's see what happens. It'll never happen, but maybe we'll get more than $200. And one of my regulars walked in, and he was a big gamer. He was trading all of his old stuff for the pre-orders on the upcoming games. And then he saw that poster, and he goes, $800, eh? How much are my trades? And I was like, oh, you got like $550 there. And he goes, all right, pre-order Grand Theft Auto and put the rest in the donations. $400 straight out of the gates. And I was like, oh, I'm in trouble now. I'm in danger.
Yeah. Look, Angie, it's all your fault.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's your fault.
Your fault, mate. All right,
this frightening tangent brought to you by Angie.
Yeah, so we're going to go now. Look how much our numbers have dropped by a third, just like that. There you go. How to lose an audience in 3 minutes. Okay, guys, and just imagine this is going to really piss off the people on the audio podcast because there's no pictures of the audio podcast. All right, guys, we will wish you well, and we'll see you tomorrow night. Tomorrow night is the last live show for the year. Bomber's our guest. We are going to have shows going right through the holiday period. There will be a show every day that's not a public holiday or a weekend. It will be uploaded at 9 p.m. It will play as live, but it will be pre-records and best ofs. There will be clips going up every day on TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube. So you can get your fill. You can introduce us to your friends around the barbecue. And other than that, we'll see you tomorrow. I'm sure we'll open up Discord tomorrow night as well, actually. We've probably got to give people a chance to come in for a 2-minute call. We'll catch you guys tomorrow night from 9 p.m. With Bomber as our guest. And thanks for tonight. Tonight's been amazing. Thanks to Moana for coming in. It's been really good. And we'll see you tomorrow from 9 for another edition of Big Hairy News. Hooroo, team.
Cheers, mate.